Hey everybody, Larry Lawton here. Do I have a great video for you and a great video series I am starting, and it's all about the hole. So I came up with a 12-part series starting this week on all things related to the hole, and it's going to be what is the hole today, and we're going to just be talking about, why you sent there, how long you're there, general conditions, and even the theory behind the hole. That's the first episode. That will be today. Next one's going to be my first trip to the hole, my longest stay in the hole, logistics, showers, visits, yard time, meds, the legal issues around the hole. There's a lot of laws that go with the hole that I know because, I sued the prison so many times, and that should be a pretty good one too. The hole in the movies, everybody always goes, oh, what is it like this, whether it's Cool Hand Luke or whatnot. We're going to get that right and see what it is. The hole overseas, when I saw Raphael Rowe's show called The World's Worst Prisons, I wanted to compare those kind of places to what we do in the United States, the young people and me. The hole is a getaway, and you're going to be wondering what that episode, believe me, that's a whole episode of what happens there. Ways to get out of the hole. How do you legally get out of the hole? How do you do certain things like that? And what you can do for a family member as well who is in solitary, or the different names of the hole, and the mind games in a hole, keeping yourself sane and stuff like that, and what it did. So we're going to get into the hole today, and what the hole is. I call it the hole. People who've been in the joint call it the hole. The prison will never say you're going to the hole. The administration will never say, oh, we sent them to the hole. They said, we're sending them to the SHU, which is Special Housing Unit, or segregation, where they segregate you from the population of whatnot. Let me tell you what it is. It is the fucking hole, H-O-L-E. Now, there's misconceptions of what it is, where it is it underground, and the lights on, lights off, stuff like that. And believe it or not, I've been in a hole a lot. I was in the hole for 3 years out of my 11 straight months in the hole. That's my longest. I'll talk about that one. But as far as the hole goes, I have a lot of hole time in different prisons, why you go to the hole and stuff like that. Now, let me just jump right to the theory of the hole. As I often say in these videos, the hole is a prison within a prison. So you got your unit set up, and you have your housing units. So you have your 3 units. Usually you'll have then coming around, one side or the other will be the rec side, and the other side usually the chow hall and stuff like that, maybe CMS, which is the prison maintenance on the other side. And across from the housing units, most every prison I was in, is where you have the administration and the medical, administration, education, mental health, things like that. And the reason they have them on that side is because they're usually closer to the front gate. So when these people come from the outside, whether it's medical personnel or whatever it is, teachers, they come in through the front gate. They don't got to go wandering throughout the whole prison and go through places to get to where they're going to work. Because they come through the main entrance, just like everybody else. They go through metal detectors and everything else. When they get through it, they get let in and let out with a control center door. And when they're in, they get to those facilities. Well, so you got on the other end of the chow hall, your units, chow hall, medical. On this side, usually the yard. That's a big spot of the prison. So that's on the yard. So when you're on the yard, now usually in most places as well, next to the yard is the end of the front part of the prison, but that's where segregation is, or the hole, or Special Housing Unit. I get the fucking kick out of that one. SHU, Special Housing Unit. Get the fuck out of it, it's the hole. Anyway, when you go into the hole, you're not going underground. Now they have 2 levels. Usually you come into the hole, and when you get into the hole, you get strip searched. Just like normal. First of all, you get put in a cage that looks like a telephone booth. Literally a telephone booth. They put you in there, and that's it. They just leave you there until they're ready to process you. Because they have to process you. Because when you go to the hole in prison, they go to your unit, your cell, in the unit, whatever unit you're in, and they take everything out. You're now no more assigned to that cell. It's not like, oh, let's lock his shit up. He's coming back in 30 days. That's fucking emptied. You're done. You're like, all your property is thrown in a fucking bag, and they take it up to the property room, in the shoe usually, and that's it. And when you're in there, you will, depending on how long you're in there, they'll give you certain things. Now, again, since it's a prison within the prison, they don't give you the same stuff in your cell, in the hole. Now, depending, if you're in what they call administrative segregation, which is maybe you're in for protective custody, or you're in there for a captain's review, certain things, they don't call it seg. They have what they call administration segregation and disciplinary segregation. So when you're in disciplinary segregation, that means you went to what they call a DHO, which is a disciplinary hearing officer. Let's say Larry Lawton gets into a fight with you. I get in the fight, and they come, they take us, they put us in the hole. You go to the hole, the first thing they put you in is what they call admin seg, because you're not convicted of anything yet. Then you're gonna go to what they call a DHO, which is a disciplinary hearing officer. After you go to that disciplinary hearing officer, you're gonna get found fucking guilty. Now, there's a whole rights to that. We're gonna get into that in one of the other chapters, but I'm not gonna get into that now. So you go in there, after you get in that, you get sentenced to whatever. They says you get 30 days in the hole, 30 days in the shoe, it's segregate, discipline seg, then you got nothing coming. When I tell you nothing, they're not gonna give you your transistor radio, they're not gonna, nothing, zero. You get the bullshit they have. You might get a book, or depending on some segs, some disciplinary places, they don't let you have anything but a religious book. That's why I've read all the Bibles and the Quran and the Torah, Buddhist books. Read a lot of that, because that's all they gave you in the hole. Period. That's it. That's all they gave you. So, those are, the theory behind the hole is to correct bad behavior. It's the biggest bullshit thing in the world. Let me tell you what I mean. And it always jerked me off or got me really mad. They take a kid who comes to prison. Let's just say he's a 21-year-old kid and he robs a bank. So he robs a bank and he comes to prison. Now he's a drug addict. He robbed the bank because he's a drug addict. So he goes out there. He's a hopped up drug addict. He's 21 years old. He goes into a bank and he robs it with a note. Federal crime. Banks are all federal crimes. So he goes in there. He robs the bank. And he gets in front of court, he gets caught, they give him 5 years in prison, okay? No gun, so they don't have to give the gun violent part, but they give him 5 years in prison. Now the kid gets 5 years in prison, he's 21 years old, he's going to prison. If he goes to a maximum security prison, which a lot of these kids do, but whatever, even a medium prison, he goes to the prison and they never addressed his drug problem. Yeah, never. So he gets down the yard, he gets on the yard, he's 21 years old. He's still an addict, so he's searching for drugs, and there's drugs in prison everywhere. So they catch him. He does drugs in prison. He figures out how to get money, calls his parents. There's a lot of stuff I should talk about visitors, and I'm going to do a whole video on that. So here he is in prison, and he does drugs, and what do? They send him, they could give you a urinalysis. They give urinalysis in prison. So they give him a urinalysis, and what does he do? He gets in there and he fails a piss test. Prison puts him, so okay, when you fail a prison piss test, so funny in Atlanta, we used to pee on the walls, try to get 3 or 4 pees out so it would be, cleaner pee and all that kind of shit. Literally, it was an old facility, and they had the piss test area where the old movie theater was. But anyway, so here we are. We're in the kid gets arrested. He gets caught on a piss test, and they send him to the hole. Okay, goes to the disciplinary hearing officer. The disciplinary hearing officer finds him guilty. Piss test, whatever. And what does the kid do? They give him 60 days in the hole, 30 days, 60 days, whatever. It's going to be a lot of time. So they give him 60 days in the hole. Well, what that disciplinary hearing officer also does is he can do anything. He takes away your phone. He takes away for 6 months. He takes away your visits for 6 months. He takes away your commissary privileges for 6 months. So now you can't even buy commissary. Obviously, we all have ways around all that shit because we just get something from a buddy of ours or a friend or whatever the fuck you're gonna do. You go to the store, man. It's a game, but it's played. So now the guy goes to the hole and he gets in the hole. Now, again, the hole is supposed to be, the theory behind it is to correct bad behavior or really separate people who are fighting or whatever you want to call that, or definitely different groups. They'll always bring you to a hole when you come to, depending on the level of you and who you are in your jacket. They put you in the hole for pending captain's review. They did me. And also, if you have what they call co-defendants on a yard or something like that, you get processed in a prison. They're going to find out if anybody's there and you had a ratted on somebody or somebody ratted on you and they're at that prison. They're not going to put, they have what they call separatistas on these people. I was lucky. I never had a separatista on anybody, or nobody had a separatista on me, because I wasn't a snitch and I had nobody else on my case. The only one on my case eventually was my brother, and I lied to save my brother. So, but as far as that goes, no, nobody was in that place. So now this kid goes to the hole. He gets his stuff, and they're supposed to, try to help this guy. Never helped his drug problem. And you think the hole helped his drug problem? It made him want more shit, and now they took away the only things he has: communications with family, his visits. They take away his phone, so if he had a connection with somebody who owned a construction company and he was going to stay in contact with the people, so when he gets out he can get a job, he loses them, loses connections with everybody, and he just falls right back into the gangs or whatever he got himself into to get the drugs. And of course, people with drug addicts are very, they have a lot of ingenuity. So they're very, they'll figure out ways to get drugs, make money, whether they gotta hustle, whether they gotta sell their ass, whether they gotta try to transport drugs from one part of the prison to another for the gang, whether it's to hit on somebody, you gotta fuck somebody up, stab them, do whatever. They will figure out a way for you to pay your debt, number one, if you owe it. Or usually, they'll get money from what they call street to street, which is happens all the time. So anyway, the hole and the theory of the hole, obviously, is for them to give you a sentence commensurate with whatever you did. It's so crazy. I've never seen the disciplinary hearing officer say, 10 days in the hole. In the federal system, they give out 30 days in the hole, 60 days in the hole like it's nothing. And you start going crazy in the hole. But they also, they also take away game time. Now, what do you mean by game time? There's no more game time, they say in the feds. You have no good time, they call it. And it's not called. Every inmate gets 54 days a year off their sentence. 54 days a year, which is less than 2 months. So every year that you don't get a shot or an infraction or lose that time, and when you're in there, they will take at a clip 28 days away from you. 28 days of that 54 days you got. So if a kid gets a 10-year, let's just say a kid gets a 10-year sentence, you got to do about 8.5 years on that 10. Now, when they had good time back before the laws were changed, but when Reagan and Clinton fucked it up, when they had laws, they used to have good time. Now, you'd get a 10-year sentence, you might be able to get out in 3.5, 4 years. You do good time, you what they call program. They call it program. And think about what I just said. It's so funny because I talk about how manipulative the system is, and they literally call it program. Lawton, you got a program. They're programming you. They're fucking programming your brain. Now, they only do it because they want to control you. And that's all they're going to do it. So the theory behind the hole is it's another way to fuck with people who are convicts, guys who have fought the system. Now they're in the system already. They don't want them to run rampant. Now again, like I always say, even with outside, there is a need for everything. There's always a need for it. It's how much does the system abuse that need? Is there a need for the hole? Absolutely. You get some people who are fighting or two gangs and you got to separate. Where are you going to put them? You got to put them in some kind of area that they can't do any more damage to people or something. But you don't need to put them in there for months. Some people in there for years. You know, I want you to look up a guy named Tommy Silverstein. I saw his cell. He was the longest man in isolation in the federal system. Tommy killed a lieutenant and another guard and a lieutenant. And I think they were even relatives. He killed Cadillac. He was a founder of the Aryan Brotherhood, which is just crazy shit. And they had him in the hole since 1980. Just died a couple of years ago. And he was in the hole since 1980. Think of what I just said to you. 80s, 90s, 2010. He was in the hole for like 38 years. Some crazy number. Never seeing anyone. He was on a thing they called no human contact. So they used to feed him through a door, and only a lieutenant could feed him. And they'd have to open the door, put it in, let him close it. And I knew friends who knew him that they worked in the mailroom or the library mailroom where they send out artwork and stuff like that. You could send out stuff, leather work, stuff you do. And they said his shit was demonic. I mean, can you imagine? You know, I was going crazy in the hole. The hole is not a place they should use as another part of the unit, another part of prison. It's not what it's made for, and it's not what it should be. It is a torture. It is torture. Believe me when I tell you. It is straight torture. Don't anybody ever kid you. The hole is torture. And then when they do the things they did to me, and we're going to get into those stuff, what they do in the hole and how they come and get you and how they control you in the hole when you're out of control. But what's so sad is they've used the hole as a mental institution. And it's bad enough they use prisons as a mental institution. Now, since the wardens and the captains can't control a mental person, because you can't, because it's mental, it needs medical care, what do they do? The next step they do is they put him in the hole. Almost like, I don't want to know he's there. But we're going to get into the hole. And what they do, why, they come around once a week. And I did explain in one of my videos how, we fuck with the people, the wardens, and I did, and you had to, and the administrator and the staff that comes around. We're going to get into all of that. This series, The Hole, I've been thinking about it a lot because it's really an interesting series, if you want to call it that. Because you're going to know everything about The Hole when you're done with my series. And it's going to be a 12-part series. So every week, I'm going to come out with The Hole. And I think you're going to learn a lot about prison, The Hole in prison. Everybody knows, prisons are bad. Everybody sees The Hole and they think, Cool Hand Luke or a box. It's not like that. Now, there are holes. They control the lighting, everything from the outside. They control the water. They control everything that goes on in that cell through pipe chases. We're going to get into the different types of holes and stuff like that. I wanted to give this introduction of what this is going to be about. Not only what this is going to be about, what the theory of the hole was. And that's why I wanted to catch on this one. And the general conditions of the hole, which is there's a locker. There's no locker. No lock, I'm sorry. There's no locker. There's a bed or a bunk bed. Usually it's two people to a hole. Depending on who you are and how violent you are and whatnot, you might have your own. Like a lot of times I had my own. But they'll have two people in the hole. I've seen three people in the hole in a cell. Think of that. Never leaving. Now, by law, I love that line. By policy and law, they're supposed to give you an hour of recreation a day, 5 days a week. We know they don't do that. They have the greatest wording in the world to stop that. They call it, for the safe and orderly running of the institution, we had to cancel rec today. Inclement weather. And that's some bullshit one right there, because they have, when you go to rec from the hole, the recreation yard, it's a cage. We used to call it a dog cage. It's a 20 by 10 foot cage, literally. It's a fucking, think of a pound. And you'll see all these cages. And there'll be a cage next to it, and a cage next to it. Now, sometimes they'll put 3 or 4 or 5 people in that one cage. And that's where you can kill someone, you can fuck them up, you can do a lot of different things. So many things you can do in prison to mess somebody up. And that's even in the hole. Because, you know, we're going to get into how drugs are brought in, why people go to the hole. They'll actually go to the hole to make money. And you're thinking, what's that going to be about? So that's going to be a good one. You guys are going to enjoy this series. So our next episode on this is my first trip to the hole. And I remember it well. Anyway, everybody, you guys have a great day. Please pass these on. Anybody you think can be interested in this kind of stuff, I hope you are. Please like, please subscribe to our channel. Hit our Facebook, our Instagram, or TikTok. We're trying to build it all up, and without you guys, I can't do it, and I really appreciate you. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, make good choices. Learn about it from me. Don't learn about it firsthand. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. Check out all the links below, and there's some good stuff there. Have a good day, everybody.